From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Tuesday, October 29. Unions are using Labor's same job, same pay laws to try to secure $128 million in wage rises for labour hire mine workers. It's a big test of the Albanese government's signature reform. An investigation has begun into unproven allegations of bullying and censorship at the top of the New South Wales Prosecution Office following a public interest disclosure. Those exclusives are live now at theaustralian.com.au. With just over a week to go until Americans cast their votes for President, the Senate and the House of Representatives on November 5, Donald Trump is closing in on Kamala Harris's lead. Today, we join our correspondent on the ground at Trump's New York rally and ask, can Trump really win from here? Before we start, there are some rude and crude jokes in this episode. A Donald Trump rally opens with a song
Oh, God bless America!
and a prayer.
We thank you for blessing us all to live in the United States of America. We thank you for our founding fathers, who by your guidance...
Long before the man himself takes the stage.
And I'd like to begin by asking a very simple question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of criminals coming into our country. And I will bring back the American dream. We need the American dream.
This is Donald Trump at Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world.
Richer, safer. And 9 days from now, it's hardworking patriots like you who are going to save our country. Thank you.
Adam Crichton is The Australian's US correspondent and he's fresh from the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden. Adam, what is it that makes Donald Trump such a magnetic, unmissable presence on stage?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question, actually, because he speaks for so long at these events. I mean, tonight he spoke for over 60 minutes. And of course, as someone who follows him, I've heard it all 100 times before. Although the stadium was packed, the Madison Square Garden was at capacity, 20,000 people, which is quite big. And people were leaving, actually, like at the start of his speech, which I thought was interesting, because I was talking to people on the way out and they had buses and trains to catch, because many people had come from far. They were not locals. I mean, I spoke to one woman who'd flown all the way from California just to go, and she'd camped out the night before to get a good spot in the line. But that's not an unusual story, actually. I don't know how to explain it because he's not classically a good speaker. He obviously has a very distinctive style, but I think it really just goes to the anger that so many Americans feel, and he channels their rage and they support him. The striking thing to me about today was just how long it was. I mean, I got there at 10 a.m. to line up, and there were already 3,000 or 4,000 people there in the queue. And we didn't get in till 1, so I was literally standing up for 3 hours, which was not particularly pleasant, I must say. And then we go into another herding pen, and then you get searched, obviously, for your guns and things, which makes sense. And then it started at 2:30, and it went till about 8:30. So it was like 6 hours of speakers. There's so much political rage in America. There's anger about inflation. There's fury about the southern border. And Trump is the politician that you support if you're angry about those things. And, I don't think it really matters how he speaks. I don't think it matters about his affairs, about his legal cases. Clearly it doesn't, because he's now currently the favourite to win.
That vision of people leaving, that's something that Kamala Harris goaded him with during the presidential debate. Quite successfully, it seemed to me that when she raised that knocked Trump off his axis a little bit and he became very defensive and kind of lost his thread. So what you're saying is it's true, people are walking out, but maybe not because they're bored?
Yeah, look, I don't want to exaggerate the extent, but certainly there were, I would say, hundreds of people leaving kind of after he started, and he was meant to speak at 5 and he started at 7:40, which is really late, really late. I mean, that's 2.5 hours late. I imagine the average income in that stadium was lower than the average income in New York because everyone I spoke to was from a different state, mainly from New Jersey, the ones I spoke to. So they'd traveled a good hour at least to get there, and they probably had trains to get.
The first act was a comedian called Tony Hinchcliffe.
Where are my proud Latinos at tonight?
What was the reaction of the crowd to those kind of jokes?
I don't even want to say it almost because it was quite crude.
It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
I winced, actually.
Republicans are the party with a good sense of humor.
It was pretty distasteful. And of course, Democrats seized on that straight away. And the Puerto Rican joke was somewhat strange.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
And, maybe this is because I'm not part of US culture long enough, but, I don't know what it is about Puerto Rico, but this guy described it as a heap of trash. And I don't know why you do that, because it's part of the US and there's lots of Puerto Ricans in the US. And it was just somewhat gratuitous and unnecessary to make that joke. But anyway, he did. And I saw numerous high profile Democrats on social media saying, if the Dems don't do a campaign ad on that joke, they're crazy. I think the Republican strategists would have been pretty annoyed about that joke. So, for Trump, it was really an FU to the establishment in New York. And this, of course, is the city that he grew up in. He knows it very well. And it's, politically unusual to do a campaign rally in a solid blue state so close to voting day. But that's what Trump did. And I have no doubt it was his decision, because all the political people would have been saying, why don't you go and, do this in a swing state? His media savvy is extraordinary. And he knows that the fact he did it in New York will be a major media story. And from what I've been seeing in the last few hours, the whole thing has completely dominated the US media cycle. The whole thing. It's got far more attention than any Harris rally has got in recent days. Despite the fact she's had all these huge stars.
I'm Bruce Springsteen, and I am here today to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for President and Vice President of the United States.
Speaking of Harris's rallies, I've been interested to see in recent days that the calibre of stars who she's had on stage with her. Bruce Springsteen the other day, Beyonce more recently.
So let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big, loud Texas welcome to the next President of the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris.
It does make me wonder whether this is going to help Kamala Harris or if it's going to make her look more kind of elite and out of touch, all the things that Donald Trump would criticise about her. What's your sense of that, Adam, having lived in the States now for a few years? Do Americans love Beyonce so much that they will change their vote potentially depending on who Beyonce endorses?
No, look, my view is that these don't help Harris. There was a lot of anxiety amongst Republicans with the Taylor Swift announcement when she endorsed Harris very publicly on Instagram. But she got no bounce from that. These people are very rich, like they are extraordinarily rich. I mean, I think Swift and Beyonce are both billionaires. So the ordinary American earning $60,000 a year, or if that, I think that they kind of resent those sort of endorsements. That's my sense. And in fact, there is also an academic literature that says they don't help either. The momentum now, 9 days out, it is definitely with Trump. If you look at all sources, whether it's polls or betting markets, or even the interesting one is the share price of Trump's crappy media company, which has no revenue. But in the past month, it's tripled in price.
Coming up, so can we believe the polls? And is Trump going to win?
As the end of the election cycle gets closer, the focus of voters and campaigns shifts to the polls.
I don't know about you, but I've given up taking American political polls seriously. They were wrong in 2016 when Trump first blindsided the political establishment to win. They were wrong again in 2020 when nobody thought Joe Biden could dispatch him.
Multiple polling averages show a tightening of the race through 3 weeks of October.
This campaign, Kamala Harris had an early lead. But over the weekend, some polling indicated that lead was coming back to even. Nate Silver is an analyst who shot to fame for accurately predicting virtually every state's vote in the 2008 election that brought Barack Obama to power. He's been right on numerous other occasions too. In 2016, just like every other statistician, he didn't think Trump would win. But he gave Trump a better chance than almost anyone else. So I guess you could say he was less wrong than the others. The issue back then, as now, is that you can only deal with what voters are telling pollsters. And in this case, Harris is trying to win over women, including Republican women, who've never voted for a Democrat. And the Republicans are hoping men will come out of the woodwork to vote for Trump. Those things are hard to predict because they're decisions people might make on the drive to the voting booth, or they might decide to switch at the last minute or not vote at all. Early on Tuesday morning, Silver had Harris at 48.6%, just in front of Trump at 47.4%. That's a nearly 2 percentage point improvement for the Republicans in the past month. I leaned on Adam, taking advantage of the fact he was exhausted after his big day at the rally, to make a prediction for us.
You know, at this stage, I'd have to say Trump is going to win. But what I struggle with is just that if he wins, it's the most incredible political comeback in world history, I would say. I don't think that's an exaggeration. And I can't imagine it almost because he's just got so much baggage. He's so hated by a large minority of the American population. And it is unfathomable. I mean, you think back 2 years ago when he launched his campaign, everyone derided him, including me, as a has-been, as a problem, as someone the Republicans needed to get rid of. And he's proved everyone wrong. There's something about him. He has the X factor. So if you're forcing me to predict, I would say Trump will win. But you know, there's still 9 days to go, and it could get very rough and aggressive in the next few days. Who knows what's going to come out in the news?
Adam Crichton is the Australian's US correspondent, and he's on the ground with Cameron Stewart and Joe Kelly. A subscription to The Australian also gives you access to all the reporting and analysis from our stablemate, The Wall Street Journal. And it starts at $1 a week. For the first 4 weeks, you can cancel anytime. Join us at theaustralian.com.au.